Alright guys, so for this challenge, I'm going to walk through the entirety of creating a game. This one is a trash collection game, sorting. We've seen a lot of games that are like this. I will do just a little bit of playthrough and then we'll kind of explain the different parts of it. And then we'll kind of explain the strategy of what we're looking at and how we're going to be testing for this, and then start doing the development, okay? So your guys' final product should look and operate like this, and actually should go there because I'm going to point out some bugs that this game does have that I want you guys to try to improve on. Okay, so let's go ahead and play it. All right, so the first thing that we have, that this will size appropriately when I play it based off of the screen size. So it's not doing the resize on the fly, it's doing it as the initial setup. So if I'm doing this and I'm sharing it, say, as a full screen, it's opening full screen. Okay, so that's something that we're going to want to do. The other thing that we are going to end up having, so let's go ahead. What we see is we have some basic instructions. We have a background. We have a slider here and a play button and a health bar. Okay, now if I click play, I got music playing. Okay, it stops when I click play again. Okay, we don't see the trash or the bins as we're paused, but we see the instructions again. When I click play, we got the music going, and you guys will see the different types of trash. So we have paper type, glass type, all right, now each time that they get close to the bin, it will sort them, and they fall at a certain rate. Once they've been sorted, they will reset above the screen randomly. So I got to resort. When I click, they are giving me that collection sound. As I collect more and more, we will have them start to speed up and how fast they are coming down. Okay, now if I click play again, notice we got metal, trash, glass, plastic, paper. If we are missorting them, let's listen. We get that sound. It's affecting our health. All right, let's redo it again. I want you guys to notice we start with 5 trash, but the 5 trash is randomly created on the start of the game, and the bins are set up in a different order. So now they're a different order. So every time we play, this is going to be a little bit different. That's trash. Pizza boxes are not recyclable. Paper, plastic, styrofoam is also trash. Those are our 5. Now, as we progress in the game, every time we get to 10, we will get another set. So I'll let this play for a little bit. I don't need to bring them to right above the stuff, but that makes the game kind of go by faster. Okay, if you listen, you can hear the music start to speed up a little bit. This will quickly get to a point where it's difficult to sort them. Should start getting some more trash. Now they're all randomly generated, so they could still be the same ones that we have. Of course, there could be a bug in here. That one's new. That's trash. Another glass bottle. That's metal. Alright. It starts slow, but it gets progressively faster to make it more and more difficult. Now we can only grab one thing at a time, which makes the game a little more difficult to play because you got to plan your moves. Oh no. Oh, we're gonna lose. Alright, so we lost. So that's basically the game. When we play, now when we click play again, since our health is lower than 0, we will start the game over. So the same button is controlling us playing, pausing, and resetting the game. We also have the volume slider that we can adjust the music volume. Okay. Again, each time we reset though, see how that replayed? We have different sets of trash, different sets of bins, order. So that's what we are creating. Okay. So for this project, there's a number of things that we have to do though to be able to do this. We have to have sounds. We don't want to add sounds right away because that's going to get a little bit difficult for us to be able to play the game. We do want to have a couple features though. First, I think that we should start with the trash. We want the trash to generate randomly, fall at a specific speed. As it gets to the very end, we want it to reset randomly, okay? But we want it to generate where it's not just the same 5 trash that are generating, but it's giving us some type of randomization so that we feel like there's a playability value in it. The same for the bins. We want the bins to reorganize. So there's a couple things that we're going to be doing in this that's using what we have learned up to this point, using some loops, using functions, and then using simple objects to be able to build this to do what we want. Okay? All right, so other things that we are going to want to consider when we are grabbing things, we're using the mouse press and mouse release. We want to make sure that we can only grab one thing at a time. We don't want to be able to grab, say, something and then have it flag for everything and then we just start collecting stuff because then we'd have a pile of things that would be difficult to sort. We are going to use a separate library for collisions because we have point to rectangle collisions and then we have rectangle to rectangle collisions for the trash hitting the bin. Another thing that we want to do is because we have, so let me open this up, because we have, actually I can open it here. You guys will have these resources. Because we have different types of trash, they could all have different sizes. And what would be cool about this is instead of me specifying a size, I'm just going to actually pull the sizes from the images themselves. Every image has a width and a height. We're going to use that to our advantage to create these to make them faster. So glass bottles are roughly the same size. This, the bins for the trash, we are going to have those built. The width would be basically taking the entire width of the screen, dividing it by 5, and then that's the width of each of our bins, and then we can specify the height. So when we're looking at the game, if I have it this size and I click play, this is all my trash. That's the total width divided by 5. Now if I go to a full screen, and I see this one, now this is even wider, okay, we're getting a very specific height. Now if I am sizing this much smaller, the trash is that width is being built from the width of the screen. Okay, so there's a number of changes that we are going to make as we are developing this. Okay, and then, you know, for the icing on the cake, having some type of health bar, and that is built by the length of the trash that we have sorted, what our current health is. We're going to use that to build that out too. Okay, so to start off, let's create a new project. And we're going to call it Trash Collection Game Walkthrough. Now, this type of game, there's a lot of different variations of this. Basically, us being able to select things and sort them or move them around. You could use different parts of this if you were creating a game and you were using some type of inventory system. There's a lot of things that we could do with this example. Okay, so we're going to be building this out. Okay, to start off, things that we have not used yet. We want to do window width. That is going to be the given window size that we have over here. Okay, so we do window width and window height, and we run that. That will give the total size. Now, especially because we're going to use buttons, I like to subtract just a little bit. So we're going to say just subtract 30 from both, from the width and the height, and then we run, and we have a little bit of an edge. That means we could have some buttons on here. If I resize this, it's going to be building off that full screen. Okay, so that is what we want to start with. Now we're going to have to create some functions. I want to start with just the trash first. We're going to, for this video, we'll get up to the trash. We might end up getting to the bins, or that might be a separate video, but I'm going to break this up as logically as possible with multiple videos. You guys can get full credit on this as long as you're doing the entire thing and you're turning in this entire example code. Okay, so let's start off. We don't need to individually hold on to each piece of trash, but we want to have like a list, like a trash pile that we want to create. Okay, so knowing that, we're going to create a trash pile. So our trash pile is going to start with, say, 5 things, and slowly we're going to grow those things. So let's start with trash pile as a variable that we're going to build, and then in our setup, we're going to build this out. So we want to say trash pile is going to be a list of things. Now we don't have anything in that list yet. That's what we need to create. Okay. Ultimately, what I want to do, though, is basically do something like this. Create trash pile, and then give it something like how many I want to create, and then maybe how fast I want those things to start out at. Okay, so I can leave this here, but this is basically what I want to do. When I want to draw these things, so inside my draw, I basically want to do a for of loop. So I want to do for the trash pile. I'm going to give a temporary variable for each one of the pieces of trash and call it trash of that trash pile. And what I want to do is I want to go through each one of those, because I gave it a temporary name. I say, well, whatever you are, don't care what you are, I want you to update, and I want you to display. Okay, so that would basically get us to draw. Now, this is what we basically need to create, that trash pile. Okay, and what that trash pile should be doing is calling individually to create each individual piece of trash. Okay, and so what we need to do is we need to basically build this enough to create that piece of trash. Okay, so let's think about each piece of trash. I'm going to create a specific function for this. We're going to call it create trash. And each trash is going to have some type that we want to pass in. It's going to have an image to display it, and it's going to have a speed. Okay? Now, inside of here, we are going to create a local variable, and we'll just call it, a piece of trash. And this is where we're going to create a simple object. Okay? So that trash, what we've seen there, each one had an image, it had a position, it had a size, it had a speed, and then when we were actually clicking to grab it, we had to register if it was grabbed or not. So we're going to build out a piece of trash, and then the idea of this is that if we can build this in such a way that we can specifically pass in different types and images, we only have to create this once, but it will work for every single piece of trash. And then when we create that trash pile, like up here, I could say, well, create 5 pieces. I don't care which pieces. I just want you to create them. And it's going to call this and build it out for us. Okay? This will make it so that we're doing a lot less work, but we're creating something much more cool. Okay. So for this trash, we do need to have a type. We need to know if it's paper, glass, plastic, metal, or it's just normal trash. And we can use that to match with the bin. So let's go ahead and type. The type is going to be whatever we pass in. The image is going to be whatever we pass in. The size is going to be built off of, so we're going to use vectors for this. It's going to be built off of the width and the height of the image. Okay. Now the size is going to be created as a vector because this will make it easier for us. But the size is basically 2 pieces of information. Okay. The width size and the height size. Okay. The width and the height together give us the size. Okay. So we're pulling the width from the image that we're passing in and the height from the image that we're passing in. Okay. We do want to set a position, but we don't know what it is yet. So we'll set it as null because we need to do this after the piece of trash was created so that we can use the size to make sure that it stays within our bounds. Okay. Velocity is how fast it's going. Okay. This will also be a vector. But since you've seen our trash was not moving to the left or the right, so that would be 0 for the x. But for it moving down on our screen, that would be the speed. That's going to be part of our velocity. We want to put that it has not been grabbed. So this is similar to some of the stuff that we did in Unit 4. And then we need to start writing our methods. Now there's a couple of methods that we need. We need basically to play with the speed, to be able to grab it, to reset it, to display it, and to update it. Okay, so let's work on the update. Update. Oops, let's write this correctly. Update. We want, basically, if this has been grabbed, we want it to be the position where the mouse is. Okay, and if it's not, then we want it to be whatever its position originally is, and then just adding that velocity to it so it'll go down on the screen. Okay, so if this dot grabbed, because that starts out as false, if that's true, then we want to take the new position. Now, what is this position going to be? We're going to take this x position is going to be based off of the mouse x position, but we need to shift things over. So I'm going to leave it like this, and then we'll see once we have it. But we're going to have to shift it over so that the items that we grab are centered on the mouse. Okay, so this is going to have to change a little bit, but I want you guys to see it first. So let's do position.y equals mouse y. So I'm just going to write a note here. Position will need change to center items on mouse. All right. So that's just to remind us. All right. So if this is not true, if it is not grabbed, then we want it to just move down the screen. So that would just be whatever the original position of the trash is, and then we're just going to add the velocity that it has. Okay, velocity. Helps if I spell it right. Okay, now that's only if this is grabbed. So ignoring this, at any other time, anytime, the trash, if it reaches the very bottom of the screen, below the bottom of our screen, then we want it to be able to reset it. So we're going to say this dot position dot y. If that's greater than the height, then we want to reset. Okay, so we got to build that reset function. All right, now we do need to have some type of display. So our display is going to be displaying that image. We don't really need to have a collision hitbox on this. It's going to be sized exactly, the hitbox is going to be sized exactly off of that image square. So when we're looking here at, say, this metal can right here, now that little corner, that still would technically be included because we're creating a rectangle, the width and the height off of any image. Okay, so it doesn't matter which one. Now there will be a little bit of dead pixels that will still work, and that's okay. If we look, let's see, the glass bottles, you'll see it a little bit more. The sides right here, those will still pick up. For the most part, people are not going to really notice that so much because they're going to grab from the middle. All right, so there, right there, and there would still technically be clickable, right there and there. Okay, so that's what we're kind of looking at and how we want to build it. All right, so since we're designing by the image, we need to display the image. We're going to display the image at its x and y of the position vector. And then we're going to use the x and the y of its size vector, okay? And this really just is to make it easier for collisions later on. Okay, our reset, we got to do that one. And basically that is we need to reset the position and we'll build a vector to do this. Okay, so when it reaches the very bottom, we want to reset it back to the top, but our x matters. We don't want it to be halfway off the screen on the left or the right. Let me just comment this out so that we can get it resized. We want it to be, you know, always on the screen. So when I build this piece of trash, I need to think about that. So I do want to use random. I think that's going to be good. We can do random from 0 to the width of the screen, but we're going to have to minus the full size of the item so that it's always on the screen, because we're going to just default to drawing it from the top left. In this, for collisions, because we're wanting to use a library, everything likes to work better for top left. So if we're all the way on the left edge, and that's 0, the left edge would still be within. The right edge is what we need to make sure that it's within. So that would be this dot size dot x. So we're going to just subtract that out. Okay, that is for the x. Now for the y, we want it to start out at 0, but then be some random amount up here so that it's timed differently than everything else. So we can subtract an additional amount. Let's say we subtract additionally the height of the item up to 3 times the height of the item. Okay, that should give us enough variation. Okay. All right, so then once we're done, there's other methods that we're going to have to create, but once we are done creating this, so we call this function, we need to return this piece of trash. Okay, so I'm going to leave that. So what we're doing is we're creating the type, we're creating the image, we're creating the speed. And then we are just going to move that stuff as needed. Okay. Just double checking my notes real quick. There we go. Okay. Yep. All right. So now this reset, though, what we're going to use this reset. So now we got these methods right here. This reset is basically, because we're starting with a null position, once we create the trash, then we're going to call this reset. This reset will use the size of the trash that we have, and then we can use that. Okay. So now that we have this method for creating the trash, we can add functionality by playing around with this method right here, this function that's calling this simple object. Okay, so now let's start working on creating our trash pile. Okay, so function create trash pile. This is what we wanted. We wanted basically to pass in an amount and a speed, and then we could build everything from here. All right, so to do that, first we got to start off with temporary. We'll create a temporary list called types, and we need to have every type that's in there. So glass, metal, doesn't matter the order because we're going to randomly pull from these. Plastic, I just need to make sure that I have all of them. Paper, 1, 2, 3, 4, and trash. Okay, so what I want from this is using the random that we've been using all semester, is that we could randomly pull one of these items from the type and then use that to find out what image we would need to do that we would load, and then from those images we could pass that image in, and then we have the speed and we could build everything in there. So we're going to kind of create this, and then we're going to have to start loading the images. Okay, so to do this, we want to do a for loop because we are passing in an amount. So we want to keep creating items until we've reached the amount of items that we said that we wanted to create. So using a for loop, remember we got to have a starting value. So I'm just going to call that index and start it at 0. I want index to go until it is not less than the amount or it's equal to it. And index will increase by 1 every single time it does this. So inside here, this is where we need to determine what type we want to use for our trash, and then determine what image. This is kind of like a factory function. We're using this to build it. We don't care how it's building it. We're just designing the factory to do it. And then we're calling that that create trash function that's going to build those simple objects for us. Okay, so we could say let type, that's the type of the trash, is going to be a random of the types. Okay, that's what we created up here. It's just going to pull one of those and it's going to give us that value. Okay, we also know that we need to create an image. We don't know what that image is yet, but it depends on what type we have. So I'm going to start writing some an if conditional ladder. So if type is glass, then I should be passing in a glass image. So I'm going to say image is, and ideally if I'm looking at here, I have this piece of glass, this piece of glass, this piece of glass. If I had metal, I have this piece of metal, this piece of metal, this piece of metal. Now I have the width and height already put into these shapes, but I want to be able to basically have a list of each one of these items, and it's just going to randomly pick from one of those. So I'm going to build for that, and then we're going to see it happen. But so if we have glass, I want to pull from one of those random glass image lists. Okay. And if we don't, then we're going to the next one. So else if type is, let's say, plastic. If that's true, we have plastic instead. Then we're basically loading the image, but we're loading it from the plastic images. Okay, So now let's do that for the rest of them. That would be, let's say, metal, paper, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we got our trash. Okay, so glass, plastic, we're looking for, oops, no spaces. Metal, and we're going to look from the metal list of images. I'm building this very systematically because I want to make it easy to test. Okay, metal, let's do paper. We're loading from the paper images. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then my last one, I don't need to know which one because if it's not any one of these, it's just trash. So it's going to be the list from one of my trash images. Okay, which would be, if I'm looking at trash, we have spray can, styrofoam, broken ceramic cup, and a pizza box. So there's 4 different pieces of trash for that. Okay, so now that I have this, I have a type, I have an image, I am passing in a speed. Then, after all this is done, then I can create another temporary variable, and I could call that trash. And I'm going to use that create trash function. I give it the type, I give it the image, I give it the speed. Okay, once that's been created, then I can reset it. And then I can add it to that trash pile. And that would be the end of my for loop. Okay, so this would repeat this however many times. So if I'm starting off like what I had here, the create trash pile, it's going to do that 5 times. I should see 5 different things because it's randomly pulling those types. It could randomly pull glass 5 times and I'm going to see that. Okay, but it's supposed to be random. Okay, once we're finished, then we reach the end of the function. And then we come to the end of our setup. We come to our draw. That's pulling all the items that's been added to the trash pile and updating them and displaying them. Okay, so in order for this to work, we got to add a couple more things. We could start adding the images. Okay, let's make sure that I'm referencing my notes. Okay, so glass images, plastic, metal images, paper, and trash. We need to create those to hold all of that stuff. So let's do trash images, plastic images, paper images, metal images, 1, 2, 3, 4, glass, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Okay. And then we are going to have to load images and sound. So we know that we're going to use a preload. Okay. So inside our preload, we are going to basically load all of those images, but that means that I need to have those all set up as lists before I can do it. So each one of these we are loading each one of these as, so I'm using the multi-cursor select, which is just hitting Control and then typing. Each one of these is going to be an empty list. Okay, so now that I have that, now I can go through and I can load each one of these. Okay, which means I need to actually load all these trash pieces in here. Okay, so instead of just letting this sit loose in here, I'm going to create a folder and let's just call it trash. Okay, and then inside of here, I want to load all those images. So if you haven't yet, it would be a good idea to download this entire thing because you're going to use all of these bins, you're going to use the music, you have all the pieces of trash. Okay, I already have them downloaded right here. Okay, so I need to extract them. I'm going to extract them all And then I'm going to start throwing them all in here. Okay, so there's all of the stuff. Here is my trash folder. I'm going to upload files. What do I need to upload? Well, I can come here and I'm going to start just selecting, dragging, and dropping. So I got my glass, that one, that one, that one, my metal, 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 metal. There's 3 of each type. Paper, 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 plastic, 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 glass, metal, paper, plastic, and then trash, 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 trash. Drag those all in. Once those show up here where it should be good. All right. Now I need to individually load every single one of these. Okay. So how would I do that? I'm going to do a couple and then I'm going to pause and do the rest of them. You guys can do these all on your own. Glass, images, dot, push, and then I gotta say load image. What am I loading? I gotta point to what I'm loading. I'm going to load this one. I got to type it specifically by name, but it's in a folder. So I got to first type the folder. Trash slash glass 16 by 49.png. And the only reason why I have the size on here instead of saying glass 1, 2, 3 is so that I can double check that the size is correct when I have it building it, because I already can see the image size. All right, so that's how I would do one. Okay. I'm going to pause this. I'm going to do the rest of them. That's what you guys are doing. You're adding every single one of these, writing in the same format. Okay. Double check your spelling. Case sensitivity matters. Okay. I have all of them now loaded. Using this as my format. Every item is loaded. I could try to hit play to see what's happening. I didn't call anything because I have this commented out. Let's go ahead and uncomment it. Should see if I'm getting any type of errors. Speed is not defined. Well, that makes sense because I never passed it in. All right, now, so I'm going to create speed first. Now, speed, I wanted to be some type of global variable so that I could individually change everything. So as we go, I want to give it a specific size. When I call that function, I can create it based off a faster speed. So speed is important. I'm going to go small so it's not going too fast. So let's go ahead and see, and then we fix our errors. You've used P5.js reserved function, speed. Make sure you change the function name to something else. Okay, that's fair. So let's just highlight, and I'm going to hit Control F. I'm going to hit the drop down, and we're going to just call it trash speed. Make sure that we're using camel case. I'm going to click Replace All, and so now that should get rid of that error. We should be good. Okay. Now, what I want to double check is that each time I'm running this, I should see different sets of trash. Okay, so now we see a paper, 2 metal, and 2 pieces of actual trash. Let's run again. That looks different. Okay, we are thoroughly testing this before we move on. Now, I want to check that it's actually doing a reset. So I'm just going to speed it up so it's getting all the way down to the bottom so that I can see it reset to the top. Oh, go away. Okay, that looks like that's resetting. So now I can go back to 0.5. That looks pretty good. That's giving us our trash. It looks like it is staying within the bounds. I haven't seen anything that has went off the bounds. Let's start doing the same thing for the bins. Okay, let's start creating the bins. Actually, how about we go where we can grab these? That would be a next good step. Okay, so let's go to the trash. The idea of the trash is that we want to be able to grab it. So we did already kind of, let's look at our create trash. We have a grabbed. We don't have to actually pick it up yet. So that's something that we're going to have to do to build that up. So let's finish creating that trash. Okay, so let's create a function. We'll call it grab trash. And this is basically just to pick up this piece of trash that I'm currently talking about. Okay, so in order to do this, we are going to have to implement a library. So before we get any farther, let's go to our reference. We're going to go to our libraries, and we're going to look for the Collide2D. There it is. This is the one that we want. It gives us examples. We're just going to copy this right here, and as long as we're doing that underneath after P5.js has been loaded, you should be fine. So to do that, we're going to click on the index. There's P5.js. Here's our sound. We can do it before or afterwards. I'm going to do it afterwards. I'm clicking after the script, and I'm pasting. Okay, rerun. If I did it correctly, it should now say P5 Collide version 7.3 or whatever version you guys might be working on, but it's showing that it's loaded. Okay, so now we can go back to our sketch and we can go back to the grab trash. We're going to be using vectors to be able to grab our stuff. So I want, looking here, I want to do a point against a rectangle. Okay, that's this. And we're going to do the vector version. So that means we have to have a vector for the mouse position, and then we just have to have a vector for the rectangle and the size of the rectangle. And then we're going to call this. Now let's quickly scroll up so we can see what we're doing here. We're basically building off of this, which is a great resource as long as you're not really rotating your objects around. Okay, so we're doing point versus rectangle. Okay. So we want to be able to register that there is a collision anytime that point comes inside the rectangle. This would be, the point would be representing our mouse position, and the rectangle would be representing the piece of trash. So once we're in there, if we are clicking on the mouse, we want to register that we see it, it's collided, we can grab it. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So in here, we need to then build that. So we're going to say let mouse position. And we're going to have to create a vector for that. Let's do mouse X, mouse Y. And then we need basically, if we are colliding with this piece of trash, then we need to change that grabbed that we have here from false to true. And then we can also have this entire function return a value like true or false in case we need to use it in other things to register, say, yes, there was a collision. Yes, it's been grabbed. No, I should not be able to grab anything else. So that could be very useful for us. So we're going to call that collide point rect vector function, which is right here. Let's head back. It's this, collide point rect vector. It requires 3 pieces of information. We're going to give it to it. Okay, first piece, mouse position. Mouse position. Then it's the position of that piece of trash and the size of that piece of trash. That's why we had to create size as a vector, okay, was for this. Now if this is true, this is colliding, then I want to say this dot grabbed is true. And I want to return true, okay? If it's not, if we did not actually collide with it, then we are going to return. So we could do an else. We can say return false, okay? And then we can use this to be able to register. So we're going to do this with a for loop, a for of loop, and the mouse pressed to be able to check. So we can minimize these. We'll come back and we're going to keep working on them. So I'm just minimizing these to make it so it's easier for us to see. So right underneath the draw is where I like to put my mouse press stuff. So let's look at that. So function mouse pressed. Okay, so we want to go through all of the pieces of trash. So we're going to say let trash of that trash pile. We're going to go through every single one. And then we're going to say, hey, if that trash dot grab trash, which is going to go through that collision, if that returns true, then inside here we can basically break out of that loop and say that we are grabbing something. So we don't need to further check all the different pieces of trash. Let's check to see what works, because there's actually pieces that we need to do. Okay, so see, I have it. I released my mouse and I'm still holding on to it. Now, can I grab anything else? We have the brake, because if we don't have that brake, so there's a couple bugs with this, how it is. But if we grab, I can grab multiple pieces of trash, which this will make it very problematic. Okay, so we want that brake so that we're only looking for one. Okay, but now we need to actually also specify that if we have grabbed a piece of trash, we shouldn't, like if we're clicking on a piece of trash and we actually have one, we should not be able to grab another piece of trash. And then if we release the mouse, we should be able to drop it. So we're going to add a couple more variables. We need to add a full hand variable. And what is this doing? This is just going to tell us if we have picked up a piece of trash. So we're going to do it in here. Full hand is going to start off as false. All right, so then if we are in the mouse press, technically we want to not be able to check for trash if we have a full hand. So only if we do not have a full hand, that means full hand is false, then do I want to check to grab a piece of trash. So that means that all of this needs to go inside here. Okay, so just so you guys can see, I'm not caring about anything if I have a full hand. If I don't have a full hand, when I press the mouse, I want to do more stuff. Okay, so inside here, this would be a great place for us to add sound when we get to that point, because this is very event-based. It's only going to do it for one thing. All right, now, mouse press is basically done. Now we need to add a mouse released. So function mouse released, which only fires when I let go of the mouse. And we basically want to check. So if we are grabbing something and we have some type of collision with an item. So let's start with, if our hand is full, what do we want to do? Well, if our hand is full, we're going to go through every item of that trash pile. If the trash, so if we released it, we're going to go through every item, and this is where we can do things. So like right here, we might increase speed. We might add more trash somewhere in here. Actually not inside this loop, but inside of, if our hand was full, we could check. Okay. So inside of here, we would add more trash as we would progress. Okay. And we can also, if our hand is full, we can also drop the trash. So that means that inside of here, if our hand was full, we were going through every single piece of trash. If the trash has been grabbed, then we are going to drop it. So we're making it so that it is false. Okay, let's see that work. We're still holding on to it. We also need to let go of our hand once we have it. So outside of here, once we release the mouse, we want to say our full hand is false. I think we still have an issue. Okay, we can grab. I'm letting go of the mouse, and I'm still holding onto it. So I need to make sure that we're getting into there. So mouse press. Ooh. If we don't have a piece of trash, that's where the issue is. If we don't have a piece of trash, then, and we go to grab one, if we have grabbed one, then we need to actually say that we have grabbed one. So that means that we do have a full hand. So here, we want this to switch, okay? And then we're breaking out. So it's only happening one time. So as soon as that happens, we have had a collision with a piece of trash, we've grabbed it, we're saying that our hand is full, and then we're breaking out of this list. Now when we release, this should be true, so then we're going to go through and we're going to release that piece of trash and then say our hand is empty. Okay, so let's try again. I'm holding it, I let go, it's continuing to fall where it was. All right, so that is working, and it doesn't matter how fast I'm moving my mouse as long as I'm holding the mouse in. Okay, but what we do see is that once we grab, see how it snaps it down to the bottom left? Okay, we want to, or it snaps it so that we're grabbing from the top left. We want to actually change that. So the only place that we have to do that, though, is where we are creating the trash. In that simple object, this is where we want to change for everything. So we're going to just do it in the update. This is where we needed to say that we needed to set the items, okay? And we only have to make a small change to this. Basically, we want to take what that mouse position is, and then we are just going to offset this some. So we actually want to offset by half of the width. So that would be this .size.x divided by 2, which will shift it over. So as soon as I do this, we'll watch that. So when I grab, see how it looks like I'm more centered in the thing. So even though I grab here, now let's shift on our y. So that'd be this .size.y divided by 2. Let's rerun. That centers on the pizza box. That looks better. Each time we grab, now I can grab there. That looks much better. Okay, so that looks pretty good. We can still increase the speed. We could hold that. Actually, well, let's just go ahead and create that right now, and then we're basically done with this one. So we have the grab trash. If we wanted to increase the speed, let's go ahead and call that increase speed. And that would be this dot velocity dot y, and we could do it by some amount. I'm just going to hard code it as 0.1 whenever we call that. But we could have maybe a certain type of speed that we want it to do by. Every time we call this, that is going to increase. So there's a number of ways that we could do this. Every time that we grab a piece of trash, we could just naturally have it increase by speed. But that would be good. So I'm going to stop this video. We have created trash. We have created a function to create the trash for us. I can do this, and I could create 50 pieces of trash, and that's going to go through and randomly generate all the pieces of trash that we need, and it's going to go around the screen, and we can go through and grab. Now, we're going to add sounds, but we don't need to do that right now because I'll start getting annoying. But we can grab our pieces and move them around and do whatever we want with them, and then they'll just keep resetting as they go. Okay, so this is a good stopping part. We will go ahead and create the bins in the background in the next video. and continue on creating this trash collection game. All right, good luck. Have fun.